So, now I'm going to introduce you to one of the greatest rugby players of all time. That's Will Greenwood, 50 caps for England. And he asked me not to say much more, because he's going to explain a bit more in terms of his background and in terms of how and what has made him most successful. So without further ado, Will Greenwood.
Thank you, Stuart. Very words. It's Dr. Will Greenwood MBE. It's amazing what they'll give you when you win a World Cup. Firstly, Nick, outstanding. Miliband needs to watch his back. That is oratory. Outstanding 15 minutes to open up the day. And when you listen to Miliband, not that I'm declaring myself a blue, but alongside Boris, by far the most polished councillor, politician, speaker I've heard in a long, long time. So pick his brains. He will go places and he will be making a difference. I have no doubt about it. A very brief introduction, Stuart, that was indeed. So who actually has a fucking clue who I am? Who hasn't got a clue? Great, no problem. I have got absolutely no issues with that. We might as well cut to the chase pretty quickly. What I want to do in terms of the physiological state, to pick up on what Stuart's done, is to understand that you're all in the same boat, but you're in what we say in rugby, you're different choirs, but in the same cathedral. So what I'd like you to now, having had the first half hour sat down there, is stand up and shake the hands of at least two people you've never met before in your entire life. Hello, mate. How are you? Good, nice to meet you. My name's Will. What's your name?
Yeah, James.
Hi, James. How are you? How are you? Will. What's your...
How you doing?
Hi, Matt. Nice to see you.
I haven't met you.
How are you? Good, nice to see you, Mike. How are you? All right. Super. Right, take your seats. Fantastic. And I want you to take that. I want you to take that theme of friendship throughout the course of the day. Run with it. Go meet people. Go talk to people. The second thing is, in terms of the physiological state, I always get a sore neck when I try and sit and watch a speaker turn sideways. Don't worry. Turn your chair around. Turn your chair. Get it facing that way. Otherwise, you're leaning the wrong way. You get a sore neck. We want everyone to leave here in as good a physical state as they joined this room. I look back at that World Cup, which I was part of in 2003. I stood next to Handsome Johnny for 5 to 6 years internationally. Probably why you don't know who I am, but you'd probably recognise Handsome Johnny. And I actually think, what on earth did I contribute to that team? I sort of just tended to pick up nicknames. I was Shaggy, the cartoon character, for about 10 years of my international career. Jim Telfer, the awesome Scottish, British and Irish Lion coach, hardest man on the planet, called me a lighthouse in a desert. Brilliant but fucking useless. And apologies for language, I'm simply quoting a Glaswegian. And my favourite nickname was actually given to me by the Welsh in a World Cup quarter-final in 2003. We were, by that stage, the best in the world. I'm going to tell you the story of how we got to be the best in the world over the course of the next half hour, but by that World Cup, we were the number one ranked side in the world. We'd beaten Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the big dogs of rugby, the Southern Hemisphere nations as they're known, 17 times on the trot. When you consider how much of a street party we have nowadays when we beat them once, it just contextualises a little bit what Clive Woodward did with that group of players over the course of 5 to 6 years. But the quarter-final was against Wales. They weren't great. We were supposed to stuff them, and they were meant to be a mere road bump on the way to eventual glory 2 weeks later. They absolutely ambushed us. Brisbane, Suncorp Stadium, the most passionate fans in the world, had transported the spirit of the Millennium Stadium, the greatest sporting stadium on the planet in Cardiff, and they transported that to Brisbane. All I could hear was Wales, daffodils, leaks everywhere, just a sea of red. First half, we were hit by an absolute barrage of quality, pace, power. Colin Jarvis in every breakdown stealing our ball. Stephen Jones kicking the corners magnificently. Shane Williams, we knew he was out there because he was in the programme. We couldn't see little shit, we couldn't catch little shit. Just chasing shadows. Half-time whistle goes saved. We were losing that quarter-final at half-time 10-3. That first half had gone on another 5 minutes. They were camped on our line. I'm telling you now, Martin Johnson, Johnny Wilkinson, Clive Woodward, you would not know their names. We would have come home the greatest chokers in English sporting history. But we were saved by the half-time whistle. The noise lifted, the cacophony of noise lifted again. Whee! They smelt English blood. It defines their season. So as I walked off towards the tunnel, I went in underneath the advertising hoardings and looked up. Caught the eye of these 4 lads from Pontypool. Big Welsh flag. An area of the world where they regularly high-six each other. There they go. You look up. And I caught their eye, and I thought, there's 2 ways I can do this. I can be the English public school boy that I am and shuffle off, head down, embarrassed about the situation. Or I can be the northern monkey that I am. Shoulders back, chin up. Take what's coming. I've got Lawrence, Bruno, Nero Delalio tucked in behind me. If it kicks off, I'm behind him. Look up, stare him straight in the face, and the 4 lads from Pontypool lean down, unscripted, in unison, go, "Oi, Rodney Trotter, you bloody shit you are." So I've sort of been stuck with Rodney Trotter ever since. I want to play a video now, because I know I get this kind of introduction. I've written a book and I've got a World Cup winners medal, and everyone goes, wow, what's elite sport got to do with me? But for the past 7 years, I've worked in areas of high unemployment. I spend 3 months of each year with unemployed men up and down the country. I started in Liverpool, I've done North Wales, I've done South London, East London, Tottenham just after the riots, Glasgow in an area called Possil, Springburn, where the average age of death, unbelievably, is 49. It's the area where train spotting was made. And then last year in South Birmingham, working in and around the Moseley and Solihull area, working with unemployed lads. I turn up with a giant Welshman called Scott Quinnell, and we go to job centres, and we shout, "Who wants a job?" And we get our hand bitten off. I go, "Well, there's a deal to be made here. We're going to help you get work using rugby. We're going to turn you into a rugby team. Okay, over the course of the next 10 to 12 weeks, we will teach you how to play rugby. And along that process, we will bring in outside influences. Down the years, we've had Boris Johnson, Stuart Lancaster took a coaching session this year. We had Prince Harry come to Birmingham for 2 days. All sorts of people come in and teach them about the things you take for granted. Eye contact, shaking a hand, stringing a sentence together, selling yourself. And I often wondered, crikey, I'm not a counsellor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a rugby man. And when I first started, I just wanted to be the best rugby team. Within a year, I realised these lads don't really give a toss about rugby. They just want work. And so we had to change the way we went about coaching them, addressing them, working with them, and it became so utterly job-focused. But I had no experience in this. So I had to turn to what I'd learnt on a rugby field, how I'd been coached, the disciplines I lived my life by, the way I'd like to be perceived, the way I'd like to conduct myself every minute of every single day, so people think, you know what, I wouldn't mind him. So that's what it's become, because I don't want you to think of me today as the elite sportsman. I look like Montgomery Burns, okay? I'm not the physical specimen that could play international rugby now. I did 10 years ago, 10 years. But I just want you to look at this before I then tell you how potentially you can help build your team into something really, really special.
– 16 weeks of hard work. Take these people, meet them head on, absolutely no respect. You are playing for the pride of your city.
It is unbelievable the journey you boys have been on. Full focus, total drive to come together as a team.
I'm so proud of you as a group. 8 weeks ago we came together as individuals. Today we go to represent the group of people we have become.
Oh, tremendous pace. Come on, 3, 2, 1. 4-4-1.
Fill me with a brutal nostalgia for the days where I was able to play rugby.
And so much. It's not just, for me, it's not just a game of rugby.
It's been my honour, and Scott's honour to work with you.
There's just so much that you learn from just 80 minutes on that pitch. I can take so much stuff from that pitch and use it in my life.
Being a hard knock, it's not about being hard. is about doing what's right and what's proper and what's correct, and being in a team and being supportive of that team, being responsible to that team, being committed to that team, and when that team takes a knock, you all pick each other up and move forward again. That's what Hard Knocks is about.
No matter where you start off in life, it's just about where you finish. So you decide how you finish off this journey.
Might lose on the scoreboard, but they will not break our spirit tomorrow. They will not break our spirit. You are a special bunch of people who can achieve special things.
This game, I think we do have an amazing opportunity to show a whole nation and a whole generation it is possible to change. It is possible to improve ourselves. It is possible to achieve great things.
Advantage offside. Green
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Carrying on playing rugby without a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt, I love this sport more than anything at the moment.
This programme has made real and lasting changes in every single person's life, including myself. And for that, I'm grateful.
The coming on here has just changed me as a person. It's just amazing how 8 weeks in a programme can make you realise, hey, look, I'm not as bad as what everyone thinks, and I'm not as bad as everyone's putting me down as I am. Thanks for getting me wrong.
School of Hard Knocks as the lights slowly appear. It's a lot of fun. My missus knows that I'm on Hard Knock shift. I've got the biggest smile on my face. The Bristolian lad, Hard Knocks, not about being hard. Bristolian, 15 of the last 25 years in prison, started the Bristol prison riots. Now he gets given prison keys and he goes in and speaks to offenders to help them out. The Portuguese captain, Pedro, was abused as a child, now got a job. He's a manager in a software company. He comes back year on year and now interviews the following group of Hard Knocks boys. So I just wanted to lay the foundations for what I'm going to talk about. Hopefully has relevance, whether you're talking to unemployed people in Tottenham, in Glasgow, who've struggled with crime all their life, or you're getting hold of a 22-year-old international sportsman and trying to get him and his team to improve. Because history rewrites itself. Everyone thinks our team were the greatest team on the planet. Never lost a game. 75% of the people who won the World Cup on November the 22nd, 2003 in Australia went to Australia in 1998 and lost 76-0. We went to Australia in 1998 and lost 76-0. 5 years later, 75% of those lads return to win a World Cup in their Olympic stadium. We lost the Grand Slam in 1999, Scott Gibbs, 2000, Duncan Hodge, 2001, Keith Wood, 2002, Serge Betsen, with monotonous regularity. And yet we found a way to understand what happened, what went wrong, and continually stayed on that upward trajectory that Stuart was talking about. That belief that getting better never stops. So I want to talk to you about 4 things today. Cottage cheese rinsing, Lombardy time, tiny little ginger lady called Cheryl, and teacups. And those 4 things were Johnson, Delalio, Robinson to walk in this room. They'd immediately tell you what they're all about. So, cottage cheese rinsing, very apt for today, all about leadership, both on and off the field. And for this, it all turns down to Clive Woodward. Not the greatest, he's not, you are videoing, please don't say anything, not the greatest rugby coach on the planet. His final team talk before the World Cup final went something along the lines of, fellas, these Australians are pretty good. They've got Green and Larkham at half-back. If it's on in their own half, they're going to run it at you. They've got Mortlock and Flatley in the midfield. If it's on from behind their own 22 in the first minute, they're going to run it at you. Whilst I'm thinking about it, they've got Takira, they've got Rogers, they've got Saylor in the back 3. If it's on from behind their own try line in the first 30 seconds, these boys will run it at you. But, he said, they could kick it. Now, without being too technical, there are actually 2 things you can do on the rugby field. Jason Leonard leant across to me and went, £250,000 a year for that shit. So, you don't have to believe everything your boss says. But what your boss has to do, what our boss did, was create an environment whereby every day I went to work, and that's what it was, I had the opportunity to be the best I could possibly be. So cottage cheese rinsing, what's this all about? We didn't have mission statements and visions in those days. We were rugby players. I was a foreign exchange trader, dollar-yen for HSBC before I became a rugby player. I've been an economics graduate at Durham. But the rugby players, the vast majority of us, didn't know anything about mission statements. I had a bloke called Lawrence Dallaglio who 3 days before a World Cup final in an Italian restaurant ordered a Pagione until we told him that was page 1. Yeah. We had Malcolm O'Kelly, an Irishman, come down for breakfast in New Zealand in 2005 and say there are 19 million sheep in this country and I can't get a bacon sandwich. You know, we weren't the sharpest tools in the box. So mission statements was something very new to us. For ours, I remember it like it was yesterday, to establish an environment of elitism, excellence, trust and fun. But the key was the big vision, the shared, inspired vision. 1997, 1st of September, to win a World Cup. We got battered in our first World Cup, 1999. South Africa, quarter-final. There is no magic wand. I was listening to Nick Wheeler yesterday, who's built up a business in Charles Turwitt shirts over 18 years, now worth 200 million turnover each year. He knows it'll be a £1 billion business. He went bust twice, 1994 and 2006. In this Twitter, social media obsessed, instantaneous world, there are no magic wands. It just takes time, and it's graft, and it's hard work, and it's getting back on the saddle, back to the cottage cheese routine. So the vision to win a World Cup. I'm a doubting Thomas. I'm a City fan. I'm from Blackburn. I thought, what a crock of shit. We've got no chance. I just want to play for England. Let's not push it too far. And yet there were people in the room who felt finally there was an opportunity to be believed by someone. There was no Wilkinson and Robinson in those days. So giving that inspired shared vision, listening to the Labour Council view quite rightly that Nottingham is a wonderful place and will be one of the best cities in the country, is all well and good. It's delivering on that, and I believe he will deliver on that. But in terms of what we had this problem. We couldn't beat Wales, Ireland or Scotland. How can you win a World Cup? So the key to a leader is to break down impossible goals or seemingly impossible goals and turn them into manageable objectives. Greatness is a matter of conscious choice. Are you prepared to fail? Are you prepared to try? But are you prepared to have a go? So by breaking down and delivering a roadmap of an impossible goal, suddenly life becomes a little bit more realistic. You get a target at the start of the year and it seems fantastical. It often is. But you break it down into small targets in this world of P&L, black and white obsessed world, where you hit your targets, you suddenly begin to understand it's believable. Clive did something brilliant. Turn the game into 7 areas. And this is the most technical bit I'll say all afternoon. Morning. Attack, defence, scrum, line out, restart, counter-attack and the mindset game. 7 areas of the game. He stood up on 1st of September 1997 and said, if we hit 90% in each of those 7 areas, we'll win no matter what mutants come out of that opposition change room. So suddenly that impossible goal of beating the All Blacks, of trying to beat Lomu and co, was broken down. I was in charge of attack, Neil back in charge of defence, Ben Kay line-outs, Jason Leonard scrum, the list goes on. We rotated round and we were all in charge of our particular area. Clive empowered us to operate locally. It wasn't suddenly a monologue from a dictator above saying it's my way or the highway. I've explained to you his occasional paucity in terms of coaching and his understanding of rugby. But what he did was he allowed us to take control of our own particular areas. When it came to training, when it was the attack section, it was me. When it was the defence section, it was Neil Batt. And suddenly you feel as though you're driving the bus yourself. If your leader has the opportunity and mindset to delegate that responsibility to the people underneath him whilst he steers the ship and challenges the processes in and around him, you feel as though you're part of the whole process. That's a very different team to be part of than one who turns up for work and is simply told what to do. So we ran with it. We operated locally. He gave us a business card, which I carry everywhere, still all these years ago. Apologies for the language on the business card, but it is the business card he gave us. And it says, what the fuck is going on? And on the back of it, it says, if you feel like this in any meeting, hold the card up or come and see me, and it's got his mobile number on. We laminated them, we took them out onto the training field, we took them everywhere in the world. Why? Because if you couldn't understand what was happening in a meeting behind closed doors, without mutants running at you trying to knock your head off, without the noise of 80,000 people screaming and shouting, then what chance did you have when you did find yourself in that situation? When you get your opportunity in team meetings, when you come together as companies, do not waste them. We had blazing rows, hour after hour, about how we should play. But what we then committed to as a group was once we left the doors walked out. We had our head coach, we had our captain who we stood behind, and we never broke rank. We might not have agreed with what was going on, but we never broke rank. Okay? So we then changed it around and understood, because it didn't work perfectly in 1999, that we're not fit enough. Clive, we've got our 7 high-performance behaviours, great, but we can't fulfil on these because we're not fit enough. So we found an Ironman called Dave Scott, won umpteen Ironman World Strongmen competitions, and we worked out, he came and lectured us and talked to us about you wouldn't put diesel in a Ferrari. It's about what you eat. You are what you eat. It's an obvious thing to say, but even as international sportsmen, you often ignored it and took shortcuts because we're Corinthian, old school. I like to pie on a pint. He taught us about cottage cheese rinsing. Cottage cheese, brilliant nutritional supplement, but comes with a little slither of fat across the top. What he used to do was rinse his cottage cheese to make sure absolutely nothing got into his body. Suddenly we realised we were up shit creek without a paddle. Jason Leonard did not want to rinse his cottage cheese. Okay. So we flipped it on its head because we were empowered, and we said, Clive, we did ask for that. Can we tweak it a bit? Can we call ourselves 6 Wanners? 7 days in a week, 6 days, we'll commit Clive to eat like Tibetan monks. But 1 day of the week, you've got to give us our little treat like 10-year-old kids. Monday morning breakfast, we had whatever we want. Black pudding, sausage, big smiles. Wednesday evening, when Lawrence ordered the Pagione, we went to Italian restaurants or a Chinese. The teams still go in Virginia Water. Lancaster's boys actually go on a Thursday, not a Wednesday. They've changed their training plan slightly. They still have their meal out. Friday lunchtime, when all you're trying to do is load energy into it, doesn't actually matter what it is. You could eat cardboard the day before a test match. Just get it in you. We were allowed fish and chips. So suddenly, we'd completely taken what his views were about breaking unachievable goals down into manageable targets. And we began to do it ourselves in everyday life. Because absolutely, Clive always told us, it's about doing the little things right all of the time. Winning is a habit. We did not win the World Cup in Australia on that evening of November the 22nd. We won it over the course of 5 to 6 years, changing our lifestyles, changing our mindset. And with changing your mindset, you change your behaviour. So the big question is, as you've been talking to by Stuart already, do you know where you're going? Do you know what your vision is? Do you know the environment you want to work in? And is your goal in your particular area broken down into such a state that you absolutely believe you can deliver upon that? Clive Woodward was not a great rugby coach. As a creator of an environment where players could go from good to great, I noticed there was a Jim Collins book out there on one of the desks. Clive was a massive believer in Jim Collins. Fascinating business book. If you want to go from good to great, then you've got to change your mindset. Change your mindset, you change your behaviour. Absolutely. So that's the cottage cheese rinsing part of it. I want to talk about Martin Johnson as a leader on the field, but he'll come later in the teacup section. Lombardy time. This is all about a code of conduct. Again, sounds like you're in a police state. It's not about having a police state. It's about having the framework within which you operate, having those parameters clearly defined, and then having some freedom to operate and move. A code of conduct for us we call teamship. There are teamship rules. A collective standard of behaviour understood by everyone within the team environment. If you want to play with the group, you've got to play by the rules of the group. Why do we need this? Again, we learned from our errors. We always thought it was about having the best players in the team. It's not about having the best players. It's about having the best units in the team. When we would train with the Marines at Lympstone, the hardest men on the planet in 1999 and 2000, when we left the Marines in 2000, the commandant of the Marines gave Clive Woodward a piece of paper with 6 names on it, said I would not go to war with those 6 blokes. Now, we've never found out who those 6 names were. The squad slowly began to change. But the commandant of the Marines gave him a piece of paper on it, said I would not go to war with those 6 blokes. Why? Because at the time, go back to it, we were a team of energy sappers. We just wanted to stay the same. Didn't want to go on and be the best. Just wanted to play for England and get all the trappings that came with it. Happy to undermine other players who were trying to get in and help, maybe increase the quality of the squad. Happy to undermine, leak things to the press, smoky corners, walk out of team meeting rooms and go, that was a load of crap, wasn't it? We're not doing that. Couldn't carry them, energy sappers. Had to get rid of them. Had to turn them into energizers. Very simple. Absolutely. 6 names. Commandant of the Marines. So we created, after that, our code of conduct, like the Marines have their code of conduct. But again, want to keep coming back to the empowerment within workplace. They weren't rules given to us. We wrote our own rules. The management wrote their own rules. The coaches wrote their own rules. The doctors wrote their own rules. The chef, Dave Campbell, wrote his own rules about how he wants to be viewed, judged, and how he wants to operate. Examples of those rules may not have a great deal of relevance to your workplaces, but they were still things that defined how we wanted to live if we wanted to create an environment of excellence. No mobile phones in public. No dirty kit in a hotel. Always stop and sign autographs for kids. My favourite one, the title of this section, Lombardi time. The greatest American football coach of all time. Umpteen Super Bowls for the Green Bay Packers. Lombardi time meant if a team meeting started at 10, all 35 to 40 of us were strapped up, ready to start training at 9:45. My missus always said, why didn't you start at 9:45? In that case, we'd have been there at 9:30, and so on. Keep going. Not one person late in 5 years. 1999 to 2004. Because we'd made our own rules and how can you respect people who we called who were prepared to leave the game early? Didn't have the respect of time for everyone. Time is your most important commodity. And in terms of today, from Pira and the group at High Growth, thank you for your time because it is the most important commodity. So Lombardi time defined who we were, phone mobile phones in public, the changes from energy sappers into energizers. He also introduced alongside this the buddy system, Clive. To win a World Cup, you don't have to be mates. You don't have to be best pals. When I go to Bristol, I don't ring the Bristol lads and say, fancy a pint. When they come to London, they don't ring me. You've got to trust each other to do their job on the field at a given moment in time. Don't have to be mates to be a high-performing team. You have to have that respect. The buddy system sounds like you're paired up with your mate. Clive flipped it on its head. You're paired up with the bloke going for your position. I was paired up with Mike Catt for 5 years. The old days, I'd have told him the wrong time, the wrong kit, potentially the wrong country to be in. Playing against him, Leicester against Bath, he'd have tried to decapitate me. Okay? But suddenly as a buddy, I was responsible for him, he was responsible for me. He was late, I was late, I was late, he was late. Suddenly this buddy system had people who historically are going hammer and tongue and are nervous about people within your group, helping people within your group. That communication level went up throughout the team. Everyone was paired with the guy they thought was previously their enemy, and suddenly we were working together. And the best endorsement of the energy sappers into energizers, of our code of conduct, of our buddy system, took place on November the 19th, before we went for that Italian meal. Flip chart goes back in the Manly Pacific Hotel. Clive Woodward has 15 names on the team sheet. Dead simple. There's no big, massive press conference. There's no announcing it to the world. In 2003, flip chart goes back. England, Australia, World Cup final, 15 names. Problem is there are 30 lads in the room. Clive leaves, no great speeches. Pregnant pause. 15 of us, secretly, I want to jump up and down. 15 lads, 5 years, got that far, failed at the final hurdle. First 15 lads on their feet that night, 15 not in the team. First person to shake my hand was Mike Catt. Shaggy, you know my number, you know my room number, anything you need to be physically and mentally right in the next 72 hours to be right for this game and to win us this World Cup, you call me. 5-year transformation, 76-0, energy sappers, undermining everyone, 2003, before the game had even taken place. Total transformation in the team organisation. Absolutely code of conduct and how you want to be seen, how you want to operate at work is vital to create that trust so you all feel as though you're singing on the same hymn sheet. In rugby, I rely on the bloke on my left and the bloke on my right. If he's living his life the way I am, you can trust each other. Absolutely. Cheryl Calder, my little ginger-haired lady. She's one of our critical non-essentials. Everyone assumes it was 15 blokes who won a World Cup. We had a massive team, a massive organisation, a massive back office. My favourite pub quiz question is about Cheryl. I've given you the answer like the American quiz show. There's only one person in men's rugby who's ever won back-to-back World Cup winners' medals. You're thinking that's impossible. No one's ever defended the crown. Cheryl has won back-to-back World Cup winners' medals. What is Cheryl? Cheryl was one of our 1%ers. On our team meeting room, wherever we went around the world, it said 100 things 1% better equals world champions. Away from big picture, focus on small detail. Greatness is achieved through the discipline of attending to detail. I can give you other phrases that Clive always taught. He loved his phrases. Lombardi, perfection on a sports field is unattainable. Chase perfection, you catch excellence. Roll off. I'm not a disciple of Woodward, but my hard knocks boys are educated in the way I was educated in and around that elite team. 100 things 1% better make you world champions. David Brailsford with Team Sky has changed that phrase to the aggregation of marginal gains. Go hunt the small factors. In 2012, when Clive Woodward went to the British Olympic Association, he set up a 5-4-5 club. 2004 Olympics, we won 5 Olympic gold medals. Kelly Holmes won 2, Chris Hoy won his first one. The 4x100 metre runners, Darren Campbell, who was on the video, won his gold medal. The Americans dropped the baton in the semi-final. Who gives the monkeys? We won the gold. And the rowers won 1. 5 gold medals. Total time for those 5 events to take place, about 13 minutes. Total accumulated winning margin, the winning margin added up from each event, that would turn 5 golds into 5 silvers in one foul swoop is 0.545 of 1 second. So suddenly the dawning realisation of the importance of the small detail of the margins. So we chased our 1%ers. We went around the world. To be an international rugby player, however weedy I look, you have to be a rock. But on top of that, we turned it around and go, no, you've got to be half rock, half sponge. You can't keep doing the same things and expect different results. You've got to go and absorb knowledge from other walks of successful life. We sent Dave Allred, our kicking coach, to Australian rules football to learn how to catch and to come back and teach us how to catch. I think that's the most ridiculous thing ever. When I say it out loud, I think it's strange. How are you teaching international rugby players how to catch? Because the Aussie rules players catch a different way. We catch like that. They catch like that. The difference is 1.5 foot. You get to the ball quicker. We became the best cross-field kickers in the world. We called them forward passes, off the boot. We scored umpteen tries and we decimated defences by bringing in this new style. Spent hours and hours and hours retraining ourselves how to catch. We went to the Denver Broncos with John Elway, won a Super Bowl. Because to understand in American football, they have all those different components and it's stop-start, attack, defence, kicking team, restart team. We have all those within rugby, and yet it's much more fluid. So we had a problem with all our coaches in the early days. If the attack coach went first on a Tuesday, he'd spend 2 bloody hours on occasion. And then the defence coach only got a minute. So we needed to understand the power of time and the importance of time. So Denver Broncos have a very simple thing. They have a klaxon. After 15 minutes, the klaxon goes, and if you finish no matter where the coach is, that's the end of his session. You run and you do defence. You run and you do your restarts. We introduced the klaxon. Suddenly our training efficiency went through the roof. High energy, high enthusiasm, nothing drifting on we move. Cheryl Calder, the subject of this section. Who was Cheryl? She was a hockey coach. She was a hockey player from South Africa. She came and watched us train in 1999 and 2000 and then did an audit on us, basically. I went, wow, amazing quads, great bench press. You guys are strong. But you're ignoring the most important muscle in your body. Your eye is a muscle. I can teach you to use your eyes better. I can increase your peripheral vision. I will allow you to go onto the field with an opportunity to find space where previously you couldn't see it. Hours and hours on computer games, catching blindfolded, catching with eye patches on, catching to music, just understanding the power of the eye on a rugby field. She gave us an acronym called CTC. Balls being over there, what we do even when we play now at our age with the kids, bees round a honeypot. Balls over there, you just want your mum to think you're making an impact on an international field. I'm here, mum, I'm doing something. In reality, you're wasting all the space out there. So we worked out that if the first 2 or 3 guys got there, they would shout almost CTC between their backsides. That meant to the rest of us, stop, look up at the crossbar in front of you. Scan the touchlines, communicate the space. Crossbar, touchline, communicate. Everyone within an organisation has an ability to find the opportunity, to find the space. There are, in our war room, we had a phrase, there are no dumb ideas. Whether it's your first day on the job or you have 114 caps like Jason Leonard. If you find opportunities, you find space, you've got to be given the opportunity to transmit that space, to transmit those opportunities. CTC almost became subliminal. You'll see on the video later, on every training field we trained on for 3 years, there were 2 poles in the corner, almost like this flip chart, and it said CTC, CTC. So it became subliminal. Got to a stage in 02, 03, we almost didn't need to call it. It just became part of our life. Balls being looked after, don't look there. What's going on in front of us? Everyone looking, scanning for space and opportunities. For some reason in 2005, they purged Twickenham, everything to do with Sir Clive Woodward. They felt we were ghosts hanging over the stadium and the new crop of players. Cheryl was one of those to get released. Jake White, South African coach, rang her up, said, do you fancy being our vision coach? She went over to South Africa. Guess who won the World Cup in 2007? She didn't score any of Brian Abana's tries. She didn't drop any of Johnny's goals. You ask Cabana, you ask Wilkinson about her, they will carry her out of this room on their shoulder. Magnificent lady who literally opened our eyes to space and opportunity. One of our 1%ers. Not sure we ever found 100, but we never stopped looking in all walks of life. Finally, teacups. The Marines, again, back to my favourite Marines. My goodness me, we learnt a lot from those boys. They gave us a phrase, dislocated expectations. The only thing you can count on in a battle situation is things will not go according to plan. The only thing they said you can count on is it will not go according to plan. So you mustn't be surprised by surprise. And this, unfortunately, comes back to work rate. A relentless consistency to be totally in control of your own department, of your own area. With that relentless consistency comes an ability to change on the hoof. So it comes back again to a classroom. A rugby pitch is 100 metres long by 70 metres wide, played by short blokes, fat blokes, slow blokes, quick blokes. But by and large, different positions like chess pieces. It is a game of chess. Hours and hours and hours of trying to understand what happens, what do we do if different setups occur. Not to be surprised by surprise. Planning for every eventuality before it happens, so that when it does happen, because we know it will, the Marines have told us, that we're all ready to react and move as one, as opposed to, oh my God, what do we do here? We beat New Zealand in 2003 with 13 men on the field for 20 minutes. People have said it's the greatest defensive performance since Rorke's Drift. Actually, we were pretty brave, but in reality, it was in the head. We knew exactly what to do when we had so many cheating bastards in our team that we were prepared for 4 of them to be in the sin bin. So we'd planned, to be fair to Clive, I don't know what we'd have done if we'd gone down to 10, but that's never happened. We planned all the way down to playing with 11 men, understanding who moves where, what happens, so that bang, you're not having a 15-minute meeting. In international rugby, in any walk of life, you take your eye off the ball for that split second, those 2 or 3 minutes, life is gone. It's gone, and it is very, very difficult to get back. So dislocated expectations, teacups, and Martin Johnson was our best teacupper. World Cup final, 34 minutes on the clock, Johnny goes down with a shoulder injury. I've worked in the city, I've seen interest rates change unexpectedly, Bundesbank change rates, and it's pandemonium on a trading floor. There was that moment where I'm thinking, guys, King Johnny's down, he's our main point scorer. What do we, just for a split second, even with all our training, still slightly surprised. The only one not surprised was Jono. Knew that referees don't stop a game for fly halves. They're expendable. They will always stop a game for a prop. We had a rule, never play with 14 men if someone hasn't been sin bin. You remember the old advertising slogan that we'd adopted as a call? Slightly, no, I wouldn't say bending the rules, but playing within the rules. Kit Kat was take a break. Jono shouted, take a Kit Kat as quickly as possible. Kit Kat was passed down the line to Trevor Woodman, our prop, who took a dive that Didier Drogba would have been proud of. Down he goes, ref stops the game. Brilliant thinking by Jono. Gets the other 12 of us around him, points at Johnny, do not look at him. We will win this game, whether he plays on or not. Now I personally thought again, what a crock of shit. But all the forwards like, yeah, bang on, Johnny, we can still do this. To go back to the bit about the best individuals be the best team, no way any of us were the best players in the world. Ask me to be the best centre, no chance. Ask me to say I'm the best centre partnership with Mike Tyndall. Still have no idea how he's 15th in line to the throne, but fair play to him. One small plane crash away from being king, Tins, now. And the newspapers will have a bloody field day. So that's the organisation I operate in, I worked in. I'd be delighted to take any questions before you have your first coffee break, I think, of the morning. But in the meantime, if there are any questions, would love to. If not, Stuart will come back and keep steering your ship to increased improvement. Yes, Helen.
2 actually.
Yeah.
One about rugby and one about business.
Yeah.
How was the feedback given to you when it wasn't going well? Because we seem to be in a world of lots of analysis, having to give feedback to people. What happened when it wasn't so good?
Well, I'm actually trying to instill that a little bit at Sky at the moment, in terms of I don't think the feedback, people are terrified of criticism. And actually, I think constructive criticism is one of the ways to really, really improve. And it just keeps coming back to creating an environment where you go into your boardroom, meeting room with your internal employees, which is when you tend to have these meetings, that there is a no fear operation going on. If you're terrified about someone having a go at you in rugby, you were probably in the wrong sport. You had to keep it constructive, but by and large it got to a stage whereby if Clive showed someone else scoring a try, in the old days you'd all have your hands down and head down and not looking. Now it got to a stage by 2001, I was in, Stuart Lancaster invited me in on Tuesday, and they looked at the Richie McCaw try at the start of the second half. 3 lads stuck their hand up. Sorry boss, my fault, won't do it again. 10 years ago, head down, hope it's not me, hope it's not being picked out, that sort of thing. So I think you've got to create an environment where people are comfortable being criticised. And that means that they know when they leave this room, people aren't going to spread those stories, make those stories even worse. As long as you can internalise. It's what in football they tend to talk about, not washing your laundry in public. If you have that ability to be really, really harsh on yourself. The weird thing is, we were actually harsher on each other after a win. Harsher after a win. It's great winning, but it's absolutely criminal not to know why you've won. So often you do all your analysis after a loss, and after a win you roll on. When you win, get back in that room Monday morning. Why have we just won? Habit, habit, habit. Doing things right all of the time. Was there a second part of the question?
Who's going to win the World Cup?
I think there are 4 teams realistically. I mean, it's the most open World Cup there's ever been. I think it's tough to look beyond New Zealand, just because their track record and their ability to, like us, have that self-belief to go behind, go behind, go behind. Final whistle goes, bugger, they've won. That ability to get their nose in front come the final whistle. I don't think you can underestimate home advantage, and I say that without a rose-tinted spectacles, rose patch on. I was at the Olympics in 2012 and literally saw the crowd cheer Mo Farah home, almost lift Greg Rutherford in the jump, and carry Jess Ennis on that final 800 metres. Don't think you can underestimate that. So with that, the safe money would be to see dark horse, because the way the groups have come out, you could go with the Irish. Joe Smith, brilliant coach, brilliant coach. And what people ask me about Clive, interesting enough, is people want to know what percentage was Clive, what percentage was the players. It's one of the, as a mathematician, Black-Scholes theorem, all these sorts of stuff that I studied at university, you can't find an actual number. But the only thing I can say is, we would never, that group of players, however good people think they were, would never have won that World Cup without him. And he wouldn't have won it without us. And I see in Joe Schmidt, from the guys, from the teams ranked outside the top 4, as a coach who could make the team better than the sum of its parts, which is the great talent to great leadership. Yeah. Best dressed man. By a mile. Love that. Love that.
I've got some good friends who make some good club.
Good lad.
Can I ask how you transition from playing to not playing?
Transition from playing to not playing. So what do I do now? Because there's a lot of hands up going, who the heck is this guy? You didn't know me as a rugby player. You certainly don't know me now. I work for the Daily Telegraph and Sky. I'm involved in a couple of roles. I'm a solar company, I'm a software company, I'm a non-exec of 3 or 4. How do I transition? The way I played my rugby, just a fear of failure drives me. A fear of not being the best I can possibly be. By being inspired by my teammate. If you want to be inspired by a book, read Wilkinson's book and then think how inadequate you are. I think how inadequate I am in terms of squeezing life and just making sure he's the best he can possibly be on any given day. In terms of the journalism side, the people I fear are not the players I criticise, nor necessarily their fathers. My dad captained England and coached England, got sacked from both. I got dropped by England. So players, we tend to take it. The ones you've got to be really careful about are the mums and the sisters. They will fucking gouge your eyes out if you say wrong things. So I use the mum test. On TV or in print, I will only print it or say it if I would say it if their mum was stood next to me. So I'm prepared to criticise players, but I need to understand I've done my absolute research and I'm in complete control of having watched a player's last 7 to 8 games in order to go back to being constructive. Do not believe in generic one-liners, England are rubbish, sack the coach. Why are we sacking the coach? What are they doing wrong? And how can it be better? Got to offer that, in my view. You've got to try, and every time I go up to my screen and do my tactics board, I literally envisage my mother stood there. She's 73 years old. She's slightly hard of hearing. She knows a fair bit about rugby, but not everything. And I need to make sure when I'm up there, Mum understands it. We had to be very simple in our calls because we weren't, as I said, some of our players weren't the cleverest lads. In 1997, when we first started, we had 7 line-out calls. Now they have 157. In 1997, when we only had 7, we still had to whisper to Gareth Archer where it was going. So the transition, it comes back to that. Gary Player, what did he say? The harder I practice, the luckier I get. For all the 1%ers, for all the great leadership and the code of conduct, it comes back down to that individual feeling. Am I going to get up today and work hard? If you have that as a platform, everything else can follow. If you don't have that as a platform, you're the wrong bloke, and in a team, you want to get off the bus pretty quick. Plus, you don't need management. You don't need motivation. Yeah?
What has Stuart Lancaster brought to the role, and what does he need to do now with the team to win the World Cup next year?
Stuart, love Stuart. It's amazing. Most of the great coaches seem to be teachers. That ability to plan, to simplify, to have an organisational structure. Some of the great players have never made great coaches because the great players, Zinzan Brook, probably one of the greatest, wasn't a great coach because he assumed everyone knew the basics and he wanted to add the cherries on the top. So the top guys are the ones who break it down into I keep going back to breaking it down into achievable goals, manageable objectives. Stuart's fantastic at it. Really great culture. There's a lot of similarities. Even though Clive and him would never admit to it because he was the old coach who's won it, he's the new coach who wants to win it. A lot of similarities of me going into both camps and watching both camps. And at the heart of it, it keeps coming back to the right people. Getting the right people. It's such... I know I absolutely extol the virtues of the marginal gains. But for those, there's so many players who are very, very similar in talent in England. So you've got to get the right guys who've got it in their head, who contribute to the squad, who contribute to the whole well-being of the team. And I think at the moment he's got that. In terms of winning the World Cup, he's got to find a backline that can get itself out of a corner when it's boxed in. That doesn't mean they need to do triple Salcos. They just need to understand they need to teak up. At the moment, because they're inexperienced, and they are inexperienced, they don't know how to manage a game at certain key moments. Have they got time in 11 months? Absolutely. I've got a few quid on them, so they better add. And I'm a tight northern monkey. Yes, sir.
Talk about autonomy and I guess sort of the ability to make your own decisions. And talk about that in terms of leading the attack as well. Within that role, where did you go for either coaching, mentoring, or what was given to you in support of that leadership role?
So I had a variety of people that I would ring. The greatest coach I ever had was my old man. So we did my own analysis away from all coaching analysis. I studied the game a lot. I had a great mentor in Sir Ian McGeechan, who was a Scottish and a Lions coach. A great player that I played with as a Welshman, the finest player I ever played was Alan Bateman. So it was a constant search from other players and a studying of the game and the way the game was going to learn and improve and to also listen to others who came in within the squad who wanted to do things slightly differently. I just think I keep going back to being a sponge. That sounds so daft, no man's an island, that sort of stuff. Just got to be prepared. You've got to have total faith. What Clive was great at was a total faith that we would win out in the end. Totally able to confront the brutal facts of our team. But that ability to absorb information and be prepared to fail fast. So introduce things, realise it was wrong, and cut it loose quick. And I think often if you introduce something as a boss or as a head of an attack, you go, this is going to work, this is going to work, this is going to work. It's like that Tin Cup film. Keep doing it, we'll get there in the end. We'll keep, oh bugger, we've lost. It's another 4 years till the next one. So I think just that openness to be true to yourself, but just to be able to absorb and learn, and not just from rugby.
Thank you. The percentage split of what you went to search for and what was brought to you would be what?
Good question. Within that England camp, we had a lot of the information, 80-20, 90-10, in terms of that. No. In favour of the environment that Clive had created. It was an amazing place to work, I tell you. I know it sounds daft, everyone goes, of course it's an amazing place to play for England. But you're away 30 weeks of a year. A lot of you have kids. Away for 30 weeks of 52. You're at tours, it's hotel, training ground, food, play, plane, go, hotel. Like everyone, you know, wow, amazing. It's hard yards out there. You've got to make it fun. And my missus always knew when I loved my club rugby, but wow, I had a skip in my step when I was international duty. Because I knew I was going into this elite environment. I thought, today I'm going to be able to do what I can. One more before I know we've got to keep the time. Yes, sir.
You mentioned you worked as a stockbroker?
No, foreign exchange trader.
Foreign exchange?
Yeah, those stockbrokers are wankers. Jono was a stockbroker.
Which seems a completely different kind of role to...
Yeah, rugby turned pro in 1996. I was 25 by then. So I'd gone to school, 4 A levels, 3 A's and a B, failed entrance interview to Cambridge, went to Durham, 3 years at Durham, economics, did the milk round, got a job, applied for all sorts. It was actually Midland Global Markets, not HSBC in those days. Worked on Southwark Street by Thames Exchange, did a year down on the life floor, did 2 years trading dollar yen, learned properly. World Cup final is a bloody walk in the park compared to an unexpected cut in interest rates, and learnt a lot from those. Learned a lot about discipline on myself in those days, because the city is a lively place, especially on a Thursday night. So Thursday night was training night, so I never went out with the lads. And eventually, I was a black sheep to start with. Oh, rugby, it's amateur sport. What are you bothering with? Come on. I said, no, I'm passionate about it. I said, come on, there's a booze up tonight. Can't make it. Monday night in the gym, straight after work. Wednesday night in the gym, straight after work. Got home about 9:30. Alarm clock went at 5:30. I'm not trying to, I'm just telling you how it is. Tuesday night training at Quins. Thursday night training at Quins. Left work at 5, down to Waterloo, jumped on the overland, down to Twickenham, walked to the ground, finished training at 10:30, got a lift back from one of the boys who wasn't working in the city, dropped off at 11:15, got up in the morning, did it again. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, night off Friday, we travelled away in the game, played Saturday, got utterly, mortally drunk on a Saturday night, got up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, ironed 5 shirts and started again. And lost a lot of money for Midland Global Markets in the meantime. I'm sure he said bye. I tell you, Bobby Barnett, he'll fucking hunt me down. I cost him a big bonus. I'm sure he said bye.
What did you learn being a foreign exchange trader?
Calm, patience, time. There's always time to make the right decision. Diving in with both feet, like I did with Bobby Barnett early on. Terrifying. I still bump into various people from the city. I played golf recently. Bumped into a bloke called Terry Crawley, who was the head BTP trader on the life floor. Life floor is that thing from Trading Places. Funny coloured jackets, shouted and screamed. I think, Nick, correct me, I think the Italians have had more prime ministers than there have been summers since World War II. So it's a pretty lively environment. We talk about the hyperbole, up and down, their BTP, their government bond, in those days before it all became centralised, was a crazy thing to trade. There's a guy called Terry Crawley who ran that pit. Terry Crawley was a scary man. If you crossed him on a trade, you were dead to the floor. Not literally dead, but people wouldn't trade with you. You were gone, you were cut off. I bumped into him on a golf day about 2 years ago. Bear in mind, I played against people like Frank Bunce, Jonah Lomu, Andre Venter. Played against some of the hardest men on the planet and come through relatively unscathed. My ears are just about intact. Stopped dead like I'd seen a ghost when I walked in and saw Terry Crawley. Jonah Lomu was a walk compared to Terry Crawley. So what did it teach me? To understand how to think on your feet quickly, but also not dive in and be rash. Understand the implications of your next move, where it will take you 2-3 moves down the road. I was ridiculously slow for an international rugby player. I could bench press 70 kilos. Most of them do 180. I lived by the phrase that the strong take from the weak, but my friend, the smart can take from the strong. If you're prepared to use your top 2 inches and think about what you're about to do next. The life floor and the foreign exchange floor taught me more about international rugby, or as much as Clive or Ian McGeechan did. No word of a lie. Love those days. Right. I think that's just about it. Thank you very much indeed for listening.